Welcome to the European Resilience Initiative Center video podcast. Today, our guest is Rodrigo Figueredo. He is a Venezuelan. He is a co-founder of Bolivar Battalion. He is not a combatant. He is a voluntary human rights champion, a traveling artist, and a troublemaker for the authoritarians worldwide. Welcome, Rodrigo.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Sergey, for giving me this opportunity and space to talk about all these very important subjects that have to do with resilience.
Thank you for having found time for this conversation. My first question would be I see behind you a Venezuelan flag and a picture with a Ukrainian flag. What did bring you to Ukraine? Ukraine is not a country where you have a large Venezuelan community.
Well, it's quite a long story, but I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. In 2014, when Maidan was going on, at the same time in Venezuela, there were really huge protests. And at that time, I was already an exile to my country. I remember going to a manifestation in Geneva in front of the UN. And it was at that time that I firstly saw these blue and yellow flags, because both diasporas made a protest together. So from there onwards, I started seeing the dynamic of the Ukrainian struggle for freedom and change in society. The fact that they managed to make Maidan an effective revolution was something that we as Venezuelans would look up with a sort of a healthy envy, because we kind of couldn't make it in 2014, but it was still a little bit from far. So me, as a human rights militant, I started using my art, specifically in Venezuela, painting the protest, the main actors, the most symbolic and important happenings. And that was kind of like I developed the method of using my knowledge as a politologist and my strength as an artist to depict these happenings, and using new technologies of communication like social networks to make it viral and to pass the message. So I started to develop some sort of know-how and name and contacts that I firstly used for my country of origin, Venezuela. And then I started using for other countries. And well, started really strongly when the Russian invasion started. I had already developed this method of using art. I call it arte para luchar, art to fight. And I straight up went, I felt very, very, very personalized. It's not the best word. I felt like that cause was our cause too. Because we have sort of like the same sort of challenges to get a democratic society going on against authoritarianism in whatever form. And furthermore, more than the fact of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, because we also have a Russian problem in Venezuela. And not only that, we felt really identified. I felt very identified and admired the Ukrainian resistance. And I'm going to use it again, not because of the name of your show, because I really understand it and I really believe it. Their resilience in terms of confronting authoritarianism and abuse. So it became something that I got really implied in. The Venezuelan situation was at a stalemate in a way. So I took all my energy, my power, my will to fight with art and other means and put it into Ukraine. That's the why.
Wow, that is already a very powerful start for our conversation. And before we dive deeper into the topics of how you co-founded the Bolivar Battalion of Venezuelan fighters who fought in Ukraine on the side of Ukrainian army against the Russian invasion, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. If you have your comments, write them under this video. And tell us the story, Rodrigo, about how did you come to the idea to co-found Bolivar Battalion in Ukraine?
Well, then again, that's a short, long story. It started through a network of people in Europe, specifically in Europe, that I had met and worked with for a few years already, that told me by November last year, October, November last year, there's an opportunity to go to Ukraine. Do you want to go to Ukraine? And I felt like, yes, tack, like they say. It's absolutely something that I would like to do, an experience where I think that going there uh, could be useful for me, for Ukraine, for my people, and for the world. So at many levels, it made sense. So I went to Ukraine. I came out of my comfort zone. I'm an artist. I'm a politologist too, and as you presented me, I'm a troublemaker for authoritarians, and I became quite a big troublemaker for authoritarians in my dynamic as a human rights militant, specifically for Venezuela. I'm considered one of the resistant leaders of Venezuela in exile, and so I took a plane to Krakow, and then I took the bus, and then I arrived at Leopolis. It was in December, and it was very cold. It was very dark. There was no electricity in Lviv when I went for the first time, and I took a train like everybody from the Prime Minister of Japan to the President of the United States to Monica to Pedro, and I arrived at Kiev, and there I was met by some of the friends from this let's say network of people, and also some other friends that I had met, and then from then onwards I met Ukrainian people, specifically Marian Savlovsky, the Congressman Marian Savlovsky, and the idea started to grow up in the sense that I had this intuition, this vision that because of the specific Venezuelan particularities of where we're at in the conflict or in the struggle for democracy, that admiring the resistance of Ukraine to the big monster, the big monster, who using all his might and strength, this figure of David against Goliath, resonates with our own struggle, and also for the fact that I believe, this is my opinion, that in order to come out of the Chavista dictatorship, legitimacy has to come from the people. It has to be a civilian dynamic that starts it. But in any sort of, let's say, I don't want to use the word negotiation, but let's say hostile takeover, but in the good sense of the word, because the problem is that we have the dictatorship and we would like to get democracy back in my country. Well, you need the carrot and the stick. So the idea of the stick, what does it mean? Because in Venezuela, the situation of the military and the people who hold the monopoly of violence, of strength, is quite complicated. We have Cubans who are in it from the communist Castrista regime. We have Iranians. We have narco trafficking. We have literally a thug authoritarian state, and obviously the Russians. And so what could I do, being as a part of the diaspora? The Venezuelan diaspora is huge. It's close to 8 millions now from the whole 30 millions of the country. So the idea started, what can I do? I'm really good at communication wars, but it's central, but it's not enough. And being in a place where they were developing this experience against the big monster, because Russia is, for me, like the thesis or antithesis, if you want to say, in the real struggle today between a liberal democracy world, to simplify, the free world, and a pro-authoritarian or authoritarian world. And so through the meetings and people, the idea started to clarify. And then, well, I met the right people who gave me the right authorization to say, or the okay, both from civilian and government and military, to go ahead with this idea. So in my first trip to Ukraine, it was a 14 days trip, and I waited until the last day, and that flag that you see there,
Mhm.
is the very first flag, and I'm the very first Venezuelan that ever flashed the Venezuelan flag in Maidan. And when I did that, it was the day before leaving because I knew that it was on. I said that I believe that the fight for democracy, human rights, justice is universal, and that it's the same fight, and that I really feel and believe that by helping them, I help my people too.
Well,
So
that is impressive, and I in particular liked how you stressed this international character of evil and how authoritarian regimes worldwide, Iran, Cuba, Russia, how they unite to support each other in fight against democracies and against free people. That if we go like deeper into details, you have already described there is a huge diaspora of Venezuelans worldwide. Like some of them came to Ukraine to fight, but uh, environment to what many of them like have used to. It is not a Spanish-speaking country, and I believe that many of them don't speak Ukrainian. How does this daily life look for the fighters of the Bolivar Battalion, and what are the first challenges for them?
okay, so we're jumping a little bit of ahead because I kind of like stopped at the very first trip, and the Bolivar Battalion was still not officially made. It was not as fast as I got an okay, and the day afterward it was done. So basically, so I keep in mind the questions that you just gave me. So on my second trip to Ukraine, it was in April. I meet this person called they call him El Cantante, Jose David Chaparro, who is a Venezuelan who has been living in Ukraine for 17 years now. And he's married to a Ukrainian woman and has kids who grew in part in Ukraine. And this man started as when the war started. He speaks perfect Ukrainian to start with. That already, we're to get to your question a bit later. He speaks perfect Spanish. Obviously, he's Venezuelan, and he speaks perfect Ukrainian. So this man, when the invasion war from Russia to Ukraine started, he straight up went into the TDF, the territorial defense, and he participated in the battles of Irpin, Busha, and Ostomel. So Ostomel is the airport. Irpin and Busha are these towns where those horrible things happen. And so I met him, and obviously he already had a dynamic going, and the idea was kind of like stars aligning, and the meeting ended up from day one building up what then became the Bolivar Battalion. So I met him at that place in front of the golden domes of San Michael, and where they put the tanks, the destroyed tanks. Yeah. And he came in with 5 voluntaries. It was crazy because six actually. There was 3 who were Latino, and there was a Spanish, a Japanese, and there was a Bolivian, a Brazilian. And he himself Venezuelan, and he said, "Get yourself some military suit or something because I have a surprise for you." So I went there and I met him, and he said, "Well, welcome to Ukraine. Now you are part of the Bolivar Battalion." And boom, he put me. And I remember it. Too bad that I don't have it. I cannot manage to get my hands on it because every time that someone sees the chevron that we have 2 chevrons. But the one he gave me at that moment was the one with half of the flag Venezuela and half of the flag Ukraine, and so there was like the very first symbolic act of the way to formalize the Bolivar Battalion. So to start to go into the questions that you told me, so one of the reasons, practical reasons, more than strategic reasons of the creation of the Bolivar Battalion was the language. So there are voluntaries helping the defense of democracy and the defense of Ukraine's sovereignty effort coming from all over the world. And there are some who are grouped, such as, for instance, the Georgian Legion, by their origin and language and cultural, let's say, commune or same type of behaving or seeing or talking. And there was some sorts of need for the Ukrainians to, because of things that could go better, to make something, a unit where all the Spanish speaking, because it's all the Spanish speaking people, because there was voluntaries coming from Colombia, voluntaries coming from Spain, from Bolivia, from Argentina, from many countries in South America. And they were, until then, put into different units, the Georgian Legion, the Scarpaccian, I don't know how to pronounce it well. And there was some will to unify, because as you can imagine, there are not that much people who speak perfect Ukrainian and Spanish in order to make it fluid, dynamic with the Ukrainian military command. And when it's in English, it's okay because there's so many people who can do that. When it's in Spanish, well, it kind of started to make sense that we had El Comandante, who had already battle-hardened experience, and also by managing people to make this unit happen. And so that people who would come from South America and obviously Venezuelans, it's very, very, very hard and dangerous for a Venezuelan to come and help Ukraine. Whether he is in the diaspora or not, it doesn't change a bit. It's dangerous for his family back there, and well, whatever. But to put them together, and we not only have Venezuelans, but we have people from all over the world, even Australians, Americans, and Argentinians, Ecuadorians, Bolivians. And well, basically that thing started, we started doing what we had to, being in talks with the Ukrainian high command, and they had and we have, it was kind of like just obvious, we didn't even need to say it, these common micro and macro interests to work together. So basically a few months afterwards, we had the signing, the official signing of the creation of the Bolivar Battalion. And it was already ongoing, because some people who were there already in Ukraine, some people starting arriving, that had already had, I mean, for the people who were already there, there was people who already did missions and had experience in the field, different sorts of experience in the field. And then people started coming with different objectives. So I can say the strategic one in a very general term. The tactical ones I can't. But the objective is that we help them there, and then they help us somewhere.
That is a very good, like, wrapping up this idea. And I can imagine that what you said, that people really are risking their lives, not only because they can be killed or wounded by the Russians, but also because of the cooperation between the Russian regime and the current regime in Venezuela, which of course are not happy that
oh no, they are
things
not
like that are happening.
To give you a little example, just a little personal example. So on my second trip to Ukraine, we go, so the Comandante tells me, grab yourself, your stuff, tomorrow we're going to the front. So understand that I'm an artist. I've been around the world. I've been to different sorts of places that people would consider crazy or hard, like favelas in Caracas. I can tell you that some favelas in Caracas can be dangerous, not Bakhmut level, but not far. There's no bombs, but there's a lot of potential that you can lose your life for no reason. And so the Comandante takes me to Donetsk Oblast, specifically to Pokrovsk. And I went, and it's a crazy experience. I went to the front. The closer I got to the contact line was 7 kilometers. So that's you're well within mortar, even small mortar range and artillery range there. And I could hear the explosions, but I go straight up to the little detail that I was telling you about Venezuela. So because I know my Venezuelan culture, and I have this idea, and I'm an influencer too, so I use my art, my ideas, my creativity in order to pass the message. So I go to this Ukrainian soldier and I tell him, I'm gonna ask you to do a little video for me, and you just need to phonetically, because he didn't speak, so I don't speak Ukrainian, he doesn't speak Spanish, but I told him, when I'm gonna say, I'm gonna pitch a line, and then when I finish my line, you have to please phonetically repeat this. So I repeated the word that he needed to say many times. So I went on and I took the video, and I said, Épale, Nicolás, te tenemos un mensaje de aquí en Ucrania. Maduro, coño de tu madre, he said with his very Ukrainian accent. So to translate that to English, I said, hey, Nicolás Maduro, our dictator. We have a little message for you from the front here in Ukraine. And the message is that when people in Venezuela cry out loud the word Maduro, traditionally everybody responds with a coño de tu madre. And you can try it everywhere. It's just like Slava Ukraini, Heroyem Slava. That's ours. So when I did that, the Chavista propaganda laboratories and who work in not only perfect conjunction but in complete synergy with laboratories from Russian trolls and even some other people like Yarin and stuff like that. They are so used to setting the narrative and having people react to it, so that they propose reality and then people say like, no, that's not true, that's not true. That when they saw that, it caught them out of base. It's a baseball metaphor, that they got so angry that I had the whole state, the Venezuelan whole regimes, laboratories, influencers, medias on that. And I received, maybe only on the first 5-6 days, I received well over, I mean, thousands and thousands of death threats. I was super viral. And it was funny because I could see that the bullet points that they were using in order to discredit me, they would come from the Kremlin. So the Kremlin was telling the Chavista propaganda apparatus how to discredit me. They didn't even use their own brain to find ways to discredit one of their own nationals. And it was crazy because they were even calling to, so one of the biggest ones, I'm not going to name him to not give him a light, one of the biggest influencers from the Chavism, he even wrote a tweet saying, I really hope that he comes back in a black bag. So basically with my friends of NAFO, you know, the demented dogs, we reported his account so hard that he had to erase the tweet. That's another thing that we need to maybe address, is the fact of the international synergies that are created in order to help specific places. So yeah, I mean, like my specialty in fighting is also communication. I use art as a gun, as a weapon. So I really literally weaponize my art and weaponize my opinion and weaponize informing people. Getting people informed in Venezuela is really hard. And so basically the Bolivar Battalion is not only, it's not only people who will do who will help with the defense effort in specific field, as in literally a field in some trench or something. It has many levels. It has many reaches and objectives. One of them is obviously communication wars, and in that I'm a lieutenant general, let's say.
Yeah, that is amazing. And just for our audience, for those like who are not aware of how these battalions are being integrated into the Ukrainian army, all battalions are a part of the Ukrainian army. All volunteers who come to these battalions, they of course they get assigned to this battalion because they wanted to go there, and it makes sense because they speak the language, they understand culture, they stick to each other, but they are all a part of the Ukrainian army, so they are not mercenaries or something under the international law. They get officially employed by the Ukrainian state, and many countries allow such activities of their citizens, even such conservative countries like my country, Germany. They allow German citizens to go to Ukraine and to join Ukrainian army and like get officially employed by the Ukrainian state. What is not allowed is to join like wild militant mercenary groups, but none of these battalions, no Georgian one, no Bolivar one, no others, are these wild battalions. They are all a part of the Ukrainian military structure. They're all officially employed as soldiers of the Ukrainian army. And
Exactly.
yeah, that
It's
is
very
important.
important. Sorry, it's very important that you say that, because the propaganda apparatus, the words matter. Words have power, and the moral stand where you're at in a conflict matters. There is no mercenaries in Ukraine. No, there are voluntaries or legionaries who, as you said, depend of the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian army. So as much as you have the army, you have the navy, you have the aviation, then you have the legionaries, and the Bolivar Battalion makes no exception. It's not like something that you privately decide to do. And also, the very important thing is the fact about voluntarism. The Bolivar Battalion is not and will not make calls to people to come. They have to come by their own will. And if they comply with all international regulations, with the needs of Ukraine and with the needs of the Bolivar Battalion, then the Ukrainian state under the army will or not engage them.
Exactly. That is how it works. But what I wanted to ask you further, you have described these ways of cooperation between Russian trolls and Maduro's trolls. But are there like any ways like how this axis of evil cooperates? You have already mentioned that Iranians are pretty active in Venezuela and vice versa. Like, how does it look like? What are we fighting against?
Oh, we're not only fighting against accounts with a name and a lot of little numbers behind it in Twitter. The cooperation, it runs way deeper and in many fields. So one of the things that we can start, and it's very clear, and it's not a secret anymore, is that there is a Shahed Iranian drone, not only construction line, but literally production line in Venezuela. So to start with, that's already big enough and very physical. Venezuelans produce the ammunition and the Kalashnikov also. Venezuelans, I'm talking about the regime, not the people, because one thing is that Nicolás Maduro is Putin. Oops, sorry. And another thing is the Venezuelan people, which in their immense majority are against Nicolás Maduro. And a lot of Venezuelans, a lot of them, have this feeling of being with Ukrainians or being on the side of Ukrainians because they feel it themselves. So, well, you have that. You have the gold, the blood gold mines in Bolivar state in Venezuela, or in Amazon state in Venezuela. Actually, a few months, not even a month ago, there was a scandal. They were the Chavista regime was killing, literally killing miners and indigenous people to give the mines to Russian entrepreneurs. Venezuela is the second country in the world who uses and farms more crypto. So that is also a way that it's been used in order to go around sanctions and help with the financing effort of Russia. And about the 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 fact that we would have or not proof of Iranian produced drones in Venezuela that would be used in Ukraine by Russia, it's very, very, very high. So you can start, seeing where this is going, in the sense that these countries who are supporting Russia's invasion effort. So if we go to today's times, to actuality, you have, I think that artillery ammunition from North Korea just arrived to Russia. You can pretty confidently think that ammunition who has been produced or helped produced or helped finance in Venezuela has been used in Ukraine, and they don't like that. I don't like my country and my identity to be put in the wrong side of history. So I'm trying from my little position, my humble position, to add a grain of sand to the effort of Ukraine to be free, because it's the same effort as Venezuelans who want to be free.
Absolutely, and I also very like that another flag behind you is the Ukrainian flag with this picture, iconic picture of the mother escorting her daughter to the railway station. This picture was taken, if I'm not mistaken, the first days of the full-scale invasion in Kyiv, in front of the railway station, and the mother who is carrying her Kalashnikov rifle, which the Kyiv authorities, city authorities, have given out to people so they could protect themselves. So she already carrying her Kalashnikov assault rifle and taking care of her child in front of the Russian invasion. When we couldn't know if the Russians will enter Kiev or will they be stopped, but we all remember that feeling when the danger is here. The danger is very real, and it depends on every person if this danger can be defeated or not. But Rodrigo, tell me please, regarding the battalion, you already mentioned that people are coming voluntarily to Ukraine, they're fighting. We have discussed with you like the locations where they fight, like in east of Ukraine. But what is the big dream? Like, what is the besides of the victory? What is the big dream for the national battalions in Ukraine?
Well, I mean, for me, it's very obvious. So I'm gonna try to. I have a little difficulty because the strategic objectives are something that for the needs of making them happen, they should not be openly discussed publicly. But the dream is to see our country free, and we really believe that the Ukrainians winning, and they will win, will set up a sort of domino effect that would enhance or augment the possibility or facilitate the possibility that our countries are free. And I've been in talks with people from other countries who suffer the same type of authoritarian regimes in South America, such as Nicaragua and Cuba. And this is something that cannot be said, but it's pretty intuitive, right? To make a metaphor, the Belgorod in Russia's region that is adjacent to Ukraine. So you were talking about this mother taking her kid to safety with her Kalashnikov behind it in a train station, and it inspired me as an artist. So I painted it. But understand that also in Venezuelans, we're maybe sometimes the word resilience could have a bad part in a way that you could there's a word, it's not coming, so it's induced indefection. So induced indefection means that you kind of even, or they teach you or you learn not to defend yourself or to be conservative, but in the wrong, it's a weird way of saying it, so just to comply. So when the Russians come in, the whole world is like, oh my God, even there's Zelensky was proposed to get in a plane, and then he said that famous line, "I need ammo, not a plane, not a ride." And when I saw specifically that column of burnt Russian vehicles, that was my wow moment. I was like, oh my God, it can be done. Why do I say this? Because many Venezuelans think that we cannot topple or oust Maduro's regime or dictatorship because they're too strong, they're too bad, they have weapons, we don't. It's also cultural, it's not the same latitude, it's not the same type of culture of fronting or confronting a problem, but it inspired. A lot of people said, oh, actually it can be done, and they're doing it. So these people must have at least some experience or knowledge, which that's the other reason why we're doing the battalion. We want to learn, and we want to train, and we want to have the real field experience, not only in a physical field, but also in communication fields, in the technology fields, in new ways in a way, Venezuelans, I don't remember exactly, I think it was 2017 or 2018 or but before, a few years before the war in Ukraine, there was a drone attentat on Maduro, but it was not yet the Ukrainian way. There was no something dropped from the drone, but then you see it that a few years afterwards in real conflict, you see the role of drones and the role of new technologies of communication for literally the propaganda wars or the communication wars. So yeah, basically the Ukrainians right now give us, as the Bolivar Battalion, an immense, and we are very proud opportunity, and to learn from the best. It's also a bit, no, it's not a bit, it's super sad that it has to be done in this setup and context of total war. But at the same time, we feel useful because, as I was saying to you before in the interview, the moment almost 2 years now ago, the Venezuelan conflict was a sort of a stalemate, and a lot of people felt that I mean, me as a propaganda or as an anti-propaganda, counter-propaganda or communication war expert, there was not a lot to do in Venezuela at that point. And then suddenly my know-how, which I had developed for years, it came in like a glove to hand for Ukraine. So also, when I go to Ukraine and I meet with people who work in the defense sector, then my specific knowledge of my culture makes it more effective. So as the example I gave you with the Maduro coño en tu madre. they would not have come up with that idea that would have been so effective, and I would not have been able to do such an effective video if it was not done and permitted, and by my going to Ukraine and doing it from 7 kilometers away from the contact line.
Well, that is a very impressive interview, and exactly this main idea of the domino effect we all expect when Russia will be defeated and many dictatorships worldwide will fail. There will be much less conflicts, much less oppression in the world when Russia, this one of important hearts of international dictatorship network, will be defeated. It was Rodrigo Figueredo. He's a Venezuelan. He's a co-founder of Bolivar Battalion. He's a voluntary human rights champion, a travel artist, troublemaker for the authoritarians, as we have all seen today. Thank you so much for this interview, Rodrigo, and stay strong.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Slava Ukraini. Que viva Venezuela libre.
Heroem Slava. And don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to this channel, and wait for the next stunning interviews.